Hi, welcome back to Girls Dream Big's video blog series featuring incredible women and their story. I'm Stacy Tabman, founder and CEO of Girls Dream Big, and today our guest is Elle Potter, founder of Yoga Buzz. Hi, Elle.
Hi.
Elle, tell us a little something about Yoga Buzz.
Sure. So Yoga Buzz is a nonprofit organization that is committed to making yoga accessible to everybody and to building wellness through community.
Yeah, and I think it's awesome because you have these big events.
Yeah, we have been hosting pop-up yoga events all over St. Louis over this past year. We've hosted over 70 events in 1 year at over 35 different venues throughout the city.
And you just started not that long ago, right?
Yeah, a year ago.
Oh my gosh. So tell us how you're a girl dreaming big.
I think I've always been a girl dreaming big, which I think is kind of what happens is you start that way and it just continues on. For me, it's always been wanting to get my hands in a bunch of different things. Like my dad called me a jack of all trades once, and I was like, yeah, that's exactly what I want to be. Like, I think some people put a negative connotation on it, but that's what I wanted, was all of these different skills and opportunities and adventures.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's always been about like, okay, now I've tried that, now what about this? What about this?
Yeah. So how did Yoga Buzz get its start? It's only been a year old, you said.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, ultimately, the fact that I've always just been like, ooh, let me try this, is really what has given me the opportunity to have all of the skills that were really random as I was acquiring them over time and are perfect in the creation and sustaining of something like Yoga Buzz.
Mm-hmm.
So for me, I always used to start in part-time positions at small businesses, and then I would over time find ways to make my job a full-time job. So I would come back and be like, hey, I see an opportunity for you to do more with your social media, and so if you let me do that, and then let me work for 40 hours a week. And so I was always like building up the positions that I was in. And so I felt like I really took ownership within these different businesses that I worked for, which was great and super empowering, but also ended up being really painful when I realized that it wasn't actually my business.
Yeah.
And when there was something that I really wanted to do and I was met with resistance, I didn't actually have any say in the process. And so that's really where Yoga Buzz came from, was finally getting to the point where I had to try something on my own, and even if it didn't work out, as long as I took an opportunity to do something that was mine, to feed that need, that's what I needed. And then people just kept showing up to these events, and so I kept doing more and more and more, and now it's a thing.
Yeah. Now, so what was your first event?
Our first event was actually at a brewery in St. Louis at the Schlafly Tap Room, where we did yoga followed by a beer tasting, and then immediately from there it was like, so that was great, and what else is there? So we've done events. We've got one coming up with Bissinger's, so it'll be yoga followed by chocolate.
Oh, I love that.
We'll be at Eckert Farms here soon. We're doing yoga followed by apple picking as well. So the whole idea is to give people a reason to stick around after a yoga class and to connect, not in like a formal networking kind of a way, but in a way that's like creating a playground for adults.
Yeah, and building that community feel.
Yeah.
Yeah, so doing something like that's really, it's different, right? Like, who thinks to put apple picking with yoga?
Yeah.
So what gave you the courage to do that, to start something a little bit out there?
It really was just, it was having courage in what I felt like, it was having courage in myself, really.
Yeah,
it was like,
good
what
point.
would I want to do? Like, well, I would love to do a yoga class followed by brunch. That sounds delicious. How can I make that happen? And then people would relate to that and be like, I want to do yoga and then eat a bunch of food. And it's like, okay, let's do it together. So it was like having the courage to do what felt right and really fulfilling for myself, and ultimately, because I wasn't making choices based on what other people were going to respond to, it was something that was really true and important to me. That's why I think it's working.
And I think that's so important, because so often we have these passing ideas and we're like, that's just crazy, I can't do that. And you actually took it one step further and made it a reality, which is huge. So I love how big of a success Yoga Buzz has been, but I think it's important to peel back the layers too and talk about some of the struggles you've had.
For sure. Well, this whole past year has been things just growing at exponential speeds, and I got married in the middle of all of it. So it's been a struggle to do the time management piece for sure. But for me personally, the reason I left the job that I had before I started Yoga Buzz was I was having some head-to-head with an anxiety disorder that I didn't really realize that I had been having like my entire adult life, and honestly probably into high school would probably make sense. So I didn't understand what was going on for me, or why I would really struggle to get things done, or why it was so hard to get out of bed, or you know. And that was really, really hard for me, especially because I'm really, really hard on myself, and so it just kind of was a cycle of frustration. And so through getting help, through therapy, through incredible support from my friends and family, I've been able to continue to work on managing that while doing something that can also be incredibly anxiety producing. And to keep going forward through that. I think another really big challenge that I've had is learning how to say no, and learning how to be said no to.
Also. Yeah, I think it's hard not to internalize the no.
Oh yeah, for sure. It's hard to not take things personally. I've had people who don't agree with some of the things that Yoga Buzz does, and have really pushed back. I've reached out to places that I really wanted to do a Yoga Buzz event, and they've come back and been just kind of like, meh. It's like, but this would be so cool, and they're just like, meh. And so that's really frustrating. And so learning how to be resilient and to maybe come back a few months later and be like, now do you think this idea is cool? And also when people approach me, not feeling like I have to say yes so that they're not upset. You know, it's hard to say no, especially if you're afraid of hurting somebody's feelings, but if it's not what's best for you, or what's best for your business, or what's best for your own your own needs, then it can really be more damaging for both people to say yes than it could be to say no.
And then it's hard to be your best self. You're not going to do the job that you need to do, so ultimately it's going to reflect poorly on both of you.
Right.
Yeah, and I think it's so awesome that you shared your journey with anxiety and things like that, because so many people I talk to are struggling with those feelings and don't really know what it is, or they feel like there's a stigma attached to it.
Right.
So I think that's amazing that you shared that.
Yeah, well, and that's, the more I've talked about it, the more people that have come to me and been like, oh my God, me too. And, you know, I mean, for me, it was like, I came to my family and was just like, so this anxiety thing I'm experiencing, they say that it's sometimes in the family. And then it was like, oh yeah, there is, and well, why didn't you tell me? Like, so trying to make it more of an open piece of conversation. It doesn't mean that I'm broken. It doesn't mean that you're broken. It just means that it's something to deal with. It's a different adventure.
And I think it's great to see someone be so successful and still struggling with things at the same time. I think that's a great message. And I love what you're doing, so I want everyone to hear about your upcoming event. So you have a really exciting event coming up.
Yeah, so we are hosting a huge yoga event at Union Station on September 24th. It's called the Heart Center Celebration.
Oh, I like the name.
Yeah, sweet. And this whole event is funded by the Meta Movement, which is a piece of Lululemon. I'm an ambassador for Lululemon here locally, and so they help to fund this event. And so because of that, we're able to take 100% of ticket sales and of all of the fundraising that we do at the event to create a yoga program for St. Louis area veterans through the VA healthcare system. So it's going to be a yoga class set to live reggae music.
Oh, that sounds so fun.
And then afterwards, it'll be a huge expo. So there'll be a bunch of food, some beverages, a try it out, sort of an expo of acro yoga and hoop dance and core surf yoga, where you do yoga on a surfboard but not in the water. It's pretty neat. So yeah, and it's going to be just a way to hang out in this beautiful space at Union Station that was, when it opened, the largest train station in the United States. And so we're going to turn it into St. Louis's largest yoga party.
Well, that's awesome. Well, I love your message, and hopefully you guys did too. If they wanted more information, where could they find out?
Yogabuzz.org. You can also find us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram if you search for Yogabuzz STL. And that's where we are.
Well, thank you so much.
Yeah.
See you guys later.
Bye.